The men's NCAA tournament is down to 4 number 1 seeds for just the second time ever. Also, the women's tournament has produced plenty of surprises, and we've got marquee matchups on deck. Plus, our running backs back if multiple first-round picks. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It's the Final Four the most annoying person in your bracket pool was waiting for. All 4 number 1 seeds advanced. Andy Patton from Locked On College Basketball joins me now from our Fire TV bracket breakdown set. Andy, of these 4 outcomes from the Elite Eight, which one was most surprising to you?
Yeah, this is a group of teams that really just dominated throughout the regular season in a way that, I don't like picking all 1 seeds, and I didn't pick all 1 seeds. I had Michigan State over Auburn, so I guess I would say that was probably the most surprising one. Tom Izzo's team has been fantastic in March. They have so much depth and talent on this roster, and I thought with Auburn kind of limping into the tournament, they lost 3 of their last 4. They struggled a little bit in the first half of some of their games leading into this matchup against Michigan State. I thought maybe we would see a little bit of a slip there, but then they go on a 17-0 run early in the first half and pretty much put that thing on ice, pretty early in this game. So I was incredibly impressed with their performance. And I think while Auburn was the overall number 1, it was actually them that I thought was most likely to not be in the Final Four out of the 1 seeds.
Yeah, sometimes the draw is what gets you. We get the 4 best teams, though. And I think that, if you're a college basketball fan, you want to see the best teams face off in these moments, and matchups can dictate the outcomes here. If we're trying to handicap these 2 games, what do you think is going to be the key here?
I think I think looking at Duke in particular, their youth, but also their length, their size, they're just so dynamic and so difficult. And I just think that they're a matchup problem for just about anybody. Houston's a team that I think obviously could give them some trouble with just their toughness, their physicality. But I think that Duke's size and length is just too much for anybody to overcome in college basketball. I mean, they have NBA size 1 through 5. There's just not other teams in college basketball that have that. And we've seen Duke kind of punish smaller guards like Mark Sears and like RJ Davis and so on and so forth. And while Houston's got a little bit more size there, I think that's ultimately going to be an issue for them. And then on the other side, obviously Auburn and Florida, teams that are very familiar with each other. I think that's going to make that a really interesting game, but that one's going to be determined in the front court. Janai Broome down for a little bit in this game. Looks like he's totally fine, but he needs to be at 100 to 110% in order to do something against Thomas Houck and Micah Handlogden and Alex Condon in this incredible front court. Walter Clayton Jr. gets all the attention for Florida, and trust me, he deserves a lot of it. He's fantastic, but I think this front court for the Gators is going to be what kind of determines if they're the team that moves on and takes down Auburn.
When we talked to Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators last week, he mentioned that this is a team that, let's just say they screw around, but don't ever find out. Apparently they just are able to do this over and over and over. And I was texting him about how these games played out almost exactly like the last games and how the games have played out all season. Is this the time where they finally find out? Because they've been finding ways to pull these games out of nowhere. And now this is when they're playing the best teams in college basketball.
Yeah, I think so. I think for Florida, this is a situation where it also, Auburn's a team that's kind of struggled in the first half of their games as well. So, but if Auburn puts together a full 40, I don't know if Florida is going to be able to kind of sit with a 8-point deficit, 10-point deficit, and then have Walter Clayton score 15 points in the final 3 minutes and win. Like, I don't think that happens against Auburn. I don't know that I would have thought it would have happened against Texas Tech, and it did. So maybe they can have some magic again. But they're going to have to play a full 40. They don't get the opportunity to kind of just, let a lesser team get out ahead of them and then come back and beat them. They're not playing any more lesser teams. So they got to take care of business for a full 40. I think it's going to be a really fun game.
Any as we look forward here, any thought change on how you see the likely national champion playing out here?
Yeah, so I had Houston initially, and I felt pretty good about that pick, and I still feel decent about it. But I'm really struggling to see how anybody beats Duke. I mean, this team has shot over 50% in every one of their games. Offensively, they've been fantastic, and the fact that we're talking about a team with that level of efficiency, and really the best thing they've done in this tournament has been on the defensive end of the floor. Alabama scores 113 against BYU, scores basically half that in their game against Duke with just 65 points. I think that this team is so good on both ends of the floor, and I have a hard time seeing how Houston's going to beat Duke, and I think that Duke has the advantage over both Auburn and Florida. So I wouldn't be surprised to see John Shire and the Blue Devils cutting down the nets next week.
Check out the Bracket Breakdown show on the Amazon Fire TV channels app and stay up all year on college basketball by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On College Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Your Locked On Sports today. Coming up, the women's tournament has been a nonstop thrill ride. Before we get to that, we'll look at the local side of the NCAA tournaments. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. You can also check out daily Major League Baseball lines all season long. The LA Angels travel to our nation's heartland to face the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals have not lost yet, but have Miles Michaelis on the mound. Michaelis struggled mightily last year. The Angels feel like an interesting underdog pick, plus 112. So visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. Auburn is headed to the Final Four, and that puts this season pretty high on the list in school history.
But thank goodness Auburn got a lead, and thank goodness they had different guys step up at different moments to hold on. But Auburn, to me, they solidified the greatest season in Auburn basketball history just now. Like, there's no debate up to this point, regardless of what happens moving forward, whatever happens with Florida, whatever happens potentially against Duke or Houston. Auburn's going back to the Final Four for the second time in 6 seasons, guys, and they'll do it. I think they'll have a really solid chance against Florida in San Antonio.
Well, that's the key. First of all, it does solidify it's the greatest season in Auburn basketball season in history, because the 2019 team struggled a little bit during the regular season. I mean, they were a 4 seed late in the year. It was even a question if they were getting the tournament, and then they got hot. This team has dominated out of the gate, was number 1 for a record, 7-8 weeks, had one of the most quad wins in the history of college basketball, then topped that off with a Final Four appearance. So
the Florida Gators stand in their way and look like they're going to be a tough out, even if they make it a little crazy.
The Florida Gators, led by the coldest mother trucker on the planet, Walter Clayton Jr. The Florida Gators, led by a guy that's been very frustrating recently in Alex Condon. The Florida Gators, led by the most brolic transfer portal player in the country, Ruben Chinyelu. The Florida Gators, led by the best 3-and-D wing in the country. I don't care if it's true, I'm saying it. The Florida Gators, led by the best football player to ever pick up a basketball in Elijah Martin. The Florida Gators, led by the comeback story of the year in Micah Hanlogden. The Florida Gators, by the best bench guard on the planet in Denzel Aberdeen. The Florida Gators, led by America's 6th man, Thomas Houck. The Florida Gators, led by the best analytically driven coach. The Florida Gators, led by the best SEC coach in the country, Todd Golden, are headed to the Final Four. And my God, does it feel good.
The Duke Blue Devils controlled Alabama all through their Elite Eight matchup.
What was the atmosphere like there for this Duke team?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I wouldn't put it on a similar atmosphere as maybe the game at Madison Square Garden when they played up in this area earlier in the year. I think maybe that was a little bit of a better atmosphere. Also, I think you have to remember this is a team that didn't make a field goal in the final 4+ minutes. They only made 1 field goal in the final 7.5 minutes. So that Cooper Flag 3-pointer at the buzzer, that was kind of the biggest pop of the crowd in this game. And that was really the play that got everybody on their feet, that made some noise going into the locker room. And then I shouldn't say that. Second half, I mean, the crowd got loud, they got into it, but you didn't have that one major pop like you did on that three-pointer at the horn to end the first half.
It was 48-42 at the break. Duke basketball gave up 42 points in the first half. They tied the season high for most points given up in a first half with the UNC game that was played in Chapel Hill. When you evaluate that and really look at this game in a whole, seeing Arizona finish the game with 93 points on the night, defensively was kind of the one big thing to point to. What did you see there?
Well, I think it's tough when you break things down. And I should say that I think both teams struggle defensively. And again, we're not trying to pile on the officials or anything like that, but the way this game was called and the physicality and the heavy dose of whistles made it tough. When you look at Duke, I think the biggest thing in the first half defensively was kind of the offensive rebounds they continued to give up. I really thought that hurt them, and I didn't think it was anything Arizona was doing great.
And Tennessee just never had a chance against Houston.
It was never close. Houston demolishes the number 2 seed Tennessee Volunteers. They beat them up inside, beat them up outside, beat them with speed, beat them with pace. They beat them up and down the floor. This game cut to 10, and I was texting a buddy. He's a Florida guy. He's actually a Kentucky guy and a Florida guy. It's a complicated thing. And I was like, listen, man, I'm still nervous. Never know what can happen in March. It got down to about 10. He texted me, give me a hard time. But I think that's just me being me. This thing felt like it was never going to be close. I got to say, like, there's a moment in the first half when Juwan Roberts goes down with foul trouble and stuff like that where I might have been convinced otherwise. But, wow, what a freaking win to get the Houston Cougars to another Final Four. I got this shirt behind me, right, hanging up here from the Final Four in 2021. Got to get new shirts, got to update, got to get new caps, the whole ball game. Oh, my God, the Houston Cougars had the Final Four.
Half of the women's Final Four is set. We got some scintillating performances over the weekend. Plenty to dive into here with Howard Megdal from Locked On Women's Basketball. And Howard, let's start with UCLA getting to its first Final Four in program history. It was a late three-pointer that lifts them over LSU 72-65. What did you see in this one?
I will just real quickly, the AIAW Final Four with Ann Myers. UCLA got there in 1978. Always want to give flowers to Ann Myers, who always deserves it. But just an incredible UCLA victory here, despite the fact that Lauren Betts uncharacteristically got into foul trouble. Tim Mulkey talked about this after the game. This game, she said, was lost in the second quarter when Lauren Betts, with 2 fouls, had to sit, and UCLA did not miss a beat.
We also in the Elite Eight. No, excuse me, in the Sweet 16. Yeah, hold on.
That's okay. And sorry about the.
No, it's okay. I'm fine with that. I'm fine.
By the way, we'll get killed on social media if we don't do that. Ann Myers deserves it, but also I just saved your mentions.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
I do want to talk to you about the UConn game and the UConn matchup coming up here, but I would be remiss if we just overlooked South Carolina getting to yet another Final Four. Dawn Staley, this team, they lose players. It doesn't matter. They backfill. It seems like South Carolina, in a weird way, despite the dynastic level of this program, is getting overlooked here a little bit. I feel just because we've got the star power, we've got UConn, Paige Beckers, a lot of other things to talk about that we're forgetting. Hey, this South Carolina team, they're a 1 seed. They're in the Final Four again. They're really good.
It's also worth pointing out a couple of things. Number one, it's the 5th consecutive Final Four for Dawn Staley. It is a team that is fundamentally different, obviously by definition, than the team that she got there 5 years ago. There have been numerous changes. She has sent unbelievable amounts of people onto the WNBA. She still ends up doing it. What was so striking to me today was you can't point to a signature star. You could argue, and at different points, it's been true that Malaysia Fulwiley is the best player on this team. Tahina Paopao, the list goes on and on. Nobody came up with this amazing, astounding performance to put them in the Final Four. Duke makes it very hard for anyone to do so, but they still figured out late how to get it done. They simply know how to win, and the person who teaches them how to win is Dawn Staley again and again and again. Let's just not forget, elite recruiter, absolutely. Elite motivator, absolutely. Maybe the best X's and O's coaches in the game too, and let's make sure we don't forget it.
We have this USC UConn matchup that we were salivating the moment the brackets came out. Unfortunately, we had the Juju Watkins injury that takes some of the luster off of this. But you and I spoke when that Juju injury happened. Hey, this USC team is good enough to still make a run here. That being said, are you surprised that they got to this Elite Eight matchup Monday night against UConn?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised they did. That Kansas State team's a really good team, but there is a lot of talent on USC, and we actually saw it in these two freshmen. Avery Howell is a terrific, efficient scorer. Kennedy Smith is a delightful two-way player to watch. Might be the best perimeter defender in the country as a freshman. I mean, how can you even imagine that being the case? And so truly, that's what I want to see. Paige Beckers played like the best player in the country in the Sweet 16, 40 points on 27 shots. I want to see what Kennedy Smith can do, if anything, to slow her down. There will be no shame if she doesn't, but if she finds a way to do it, if USC manages to slow down the two of them in the backcourt, because A.Z. Fudd is pretty good as well, coming back next year, then it comes down to a really interesting matchup between Kiki Iriafen and Sarah Strong, maybe the best overall freshman in the country. It is a matchup absolutely fascinating, even though, yes, there will be a cloud over it because Juju Watkins isn't playing in it, and I'm still sad about it.
It would have been potentially an all-timer just from a matchup standpoint to look back at two ladies who we expect to have phenomenal WNBA careers, who had phenomenal collegiate careers. I don't want to give short shrift to Texas TCU, the inter-Texas matchup here. We've got star power. We've got the number one against the number two, Haley Van Lith, the transfer, plenty of storylines here. What is the one you have your eye on as we head toward Monday night?
I'm going to give you two. I'm sorry, that's cheating. The one that I would say is, how does Rory Harmon defend Haley Van Lith? The list of people who have been able to defend Haley Van Lith in this tournament is zero. Yeah. And then the other thing that I'm really curious about, and I've talked about this throughout a bracket breakdown, I've talked about it all year, I don't know who can match up to stop or even slow down Madison Booker. And I think this is a chance for the country. There still seems to be, like you said, this gap, this short shrift that Texas is getting some of the time. I have Texas winning it all in my bracket. This might be the moment people finally understand who Madison Booker is across the country.
Check out the Bracket Breakdown show on the Amazon Fire TV channels app and stay up to date all year on women's college basketball by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Women's Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, if multiple first-round picks are running backs, does that mean they're back?
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup. Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free. It's your team every day.
Could there be multiple running backs taken in the first round of this draft? Again, Locked On NFL host Tony Wiggins and Matt Williamson discuss that very possibility, but why running backs aren't the reason their teams are good.
We are going to start at the very top with the running backs position and how popular they are. There have been mocks that had two running backs going in the top 10. I mean it, Matt. I've seen it. There have been two going into the top 10. And Ashton Jeanty had his workout and looked like a combination of Emmitt Smith and Saquon Barkley in shorts. I still don't know how fast he is, but he looks pretty fast on tape. What do you think about the running back position, the state of the running back position in the NFL, and what it means for the draft?
I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, first of all, I think you and I have been watching football long enough that what was old becomes new. You know, I mean, it comes around. There's no question about it. And, you know, the big thing, as everyone knows, is don't allow explosives. Defensive coordinators, don't let guys behind you. I can't let Tyreek Hill get over the top, et cetera, et cetera. So then you have lighter boxes, and the Eagles, better than anybody, showed they could create explosives on the ground. Draft note, I definitely think, because I don't think this draft is particularly strong, I think running backs could be well represented on draft day. I think they're safe picks. I think there's a handful of good landing spots. It's an awesome draft class. I know that some people still believe running backs don't matter, so to speak, but I'll tell you who does think they matter: coaches on game day. Whenever it's you're in Cleveland and the wind is flying around, and it's a tight game and it's mucky weather, and you have a really good back. Your head coach and offensive coordinator certainly appreciate it, as their ability to pick up a blitz and do the little things. That being said, Wig, I mean, I don't want to go too far, because you're not going to convince me that if Tennessee held on to Derrick Henry and the Giants held on to Saquon Barkley, that they'd be competing for titles and not the Ravens or Eagles. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's still the cherry on top.
See, these are two different things. It can be the case that Saquon Barkley is not the reason the Eagles won the Super Bowl. If the Eagles had signed a running back 80% as good, if they'd signed Josh Jacobs, who was really good for Green Bay last year, but not Saquon Barkley good, they win the Super Bowl. Derrick Henry in Baltimore was incredible, but we've seen that offense hum with lesser running backs. He was incredible, but did he really make that big an impact on that team's winning? By the way, they didn't do that much winning in the postseason, which is what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to get over. But that doesn't mean the NFL won't learn the wrong lessons from last season. The top three running backs in the league last year, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, were all free agents. Look at the Detroit Lions, a team built on the run game. They used a top 15 pick on a running back. Jahmyr Gibbs has been one of the most impactful offensive players in football since he set foot in the NFL. If teams are going to stick in these two high defenses, put an umbrella over everything, then the run game is going to be back. The run game is going to matter. Now, whether or not you need to use a first-round pick on a running back is a separate question, but whether the NFL thinks that's a good idea is also a separate question. I would guess the NFL is going to come around on this. They are going to find value in the running back position, at least in the draft, because they saw how important it could be on three of the best teams in the league last year. And finally, baseball loves a story. On Sunday, the Marlins inducted Jeff Conine into their team Hall of Fame before the game. Then the Marlins beat the Pirates due in large part to a home run hit by Jeff's son, Griffin, that tied the game in the seventh. Said Griffin after the win, "We're in a great spot to start the year. The Marlins need all the good vibes they can get." Pretty cool story. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, so the Titans are going to make their pick at number one, yeah? Or will they trade it? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports.